Welcome, fantasy strategy gamers. My name is DasTactic. Welcome to this one-off video. We're going to be looking at the announcement of Runequest, which is coming now as a fully fledged, essentially a fully fledged computer tactical game. Now, I'm not going to say a strategy game just yet. I have some massive fears for this, but I'm also very, very hopeful. So I'm going to go through what those fears are and also what my hopes are for this actual game. I don't know very much about it. I was told in advance before the Slytherin Next 2024 event, which happened earlier today. I was told sort of a bit of an inside running that there was going to be a fantasy title on the cards, and I was very, very much looking forward to that, of a known IP. And now we know that the known IP is Runequest. Now, not many computer games have been done with the Runequest system. The Runequest system is mainly tabletop. Now, there's not a better company around than Slytherin to actually bring together a tabletop game into a computerized version, in my opinion, just based on what they've done, for example, with Field of Glory and other titles like that. So they tend to do a very, very good job of that. What's happening with Runequest, and I'll go through this in some detail when we get into it, but essentially they're going to be using the Warhammer Battlesector engine and then building it up in there, and that's where I have my major fears. Let's have a look at the actual the announcement trailer, and we'll just glean what we can from that one. Then we'll go through how this is likely to be presented.
Glorantha, a world where gods walk among mortals and legends shape the fate of entire lands.
Now, interested in, I'm going to pause this and talk about all sorts of different things. Now, Glorantha is essentially a massive map from the Runequest lore. It's not the full Runequest lore, it's just a big portion of it. It's the early portion. I think it was designed in the 1970s, that portion of the game. And there's a lot of the tabletop games came from within that sort of map region. Now, what we're looking at through here, which I find quite interesting, is we're seeing massive walls. It looks like it is actually part of the tactical system. So we'll see what we end up getting here.
It is a realm where magic pulses like blood through the veins of the wood.
Yeah, we're looking at different groups. See how they're actually arrayed? They are arrayed in a grid type system. So I'm pretty sure this is sort of how we're going to see some of the battles taking place. And I think they're going to be fairly contained, very much like Battlesector.
And where the skies crackle.
This is interesting in the sense that we're now looking down on a map with like a village. Now, I don't know what this will mean, whether it's just a cutscene. I'm hopeful that it's actually part of a bigger map and that you can do stuff on the map itself.
With divine power, from the craggy peaks to the shadowed plains, the stories of Glorantha.
Again, we're looking at a grid system here. It looks like a battle map. That's what it looks like.
Glorantha are etched in stone and song, immortalized in the deeds of heroes and whispered as warnings in the dark. In the rugged expanse of Talistar, the Orlanthi stand proud and unyielding. These people bound by honor, kin, and their devotion to Orlanth, the storm god. They are a people as fierce as the tempests they worship, living lives inscribed with runes and heroic deeds.
Now we see the grid system again. It's very hard to sort of pick it, but that's Battlesector grid system, which works very well, I've got to say. So anyway, we're just seeing there, we've got alpha footage work in progress in through here.
For them, battle is both survival and sacrament, and their halls ring with the epics about triumph and valor. They find their path, their calling amid the ringing of blades, the whistle of arrows, and the strikes of magical lightning. Among the chronicles of Glorantha's greatest warlords, few names stir the heart like those of Halgrim Ironsword, a warrior forged in defiance and tempered by the Orlanth's lightning. Halgrim's deeds sing with the clash of iron and the roar of storms. Yet he is not alone in the annals of our world. There are many whose names resound with power and resolve in the sagas that have been told in the Runequest Warlords.
And then this is the Steam page, which has just come up today. It's got release date coming soon, but that's probably going to be, I mean, of course, it's going to be next year sometime by the time it does release. I hope that they release it into early access and not just try to do a full release. This is a game I think that's going to have a lot of potential issues, I think, initially. And so I think early access would be the time. And I'll explain why I say these very negative things about this game without knowing anything at all about it. I do want this to succeed, this particular game. But you can see through there, similar to games you've played, we've got Battlesector because that's the engine that it's using. But it's going up against games like Age of Wonders, which really is... like, they're not going to be able to compete even slightly with what Age of Wonders does in so many different ways. And so they're going to have to sort of pick their niche very, very, very carefully. And we'll talk about that as well, because, there's certainly some very worthy, games out there that compete in this space. And so to have a game that is essentially a fantasy, if it's considered a fantasy tabletop, that's one level that we can sort of go to and think, yep, that's going to be great, and that aspect will be great. But it's just that extension beyond that is where my fears actually are for the game. Let's have a look and see all of the different screens that are available to us, and then we'll go through the detail that we know about this one. So we're going to do a bit of a deep dive. So we'll just go and start here. I'll just go and open these up so we can actually see what's going on. Now, what we see through here again is we definitely see the Battlesector system. We're seeing Battlesector map elements. We're seeing that there is actually... the maps themselves are not as structured as the Battlesector maps, which is nice, but we're still definitely seeing the grid system. So there is actually a very distinct grid system that's at play in through here, with all sorts of different things that are then sort of happening in through this other aspect as well. So I'm looking forward to this one, and just looking at the actual overall map from a tabletop perspective, from a tactical perspective, I think this will be great. So I'm thinking it's going to be very, very high level. Let's go to the next map and just see if there's anything else we can glean from what's going on here. This will be the army management screen, very much like Battlesector. I'll probably show you some Battlesector as well, and we'll just go through how these sorts of things now go and work. With the army management, you end up having different classes of troops that you then bring into like a point system for your army list. This is very unlike games like Age of Wonders, for example, because you are trying to match a point system for the best mix of forces. And again, from a tabletop perspective, this works incredibly well. And so I'm looking forward to this aspect of it. They've got different types of abilities back and through here. I'm not sure if they just come with those abilities, but this is very much like Battlesector if you've played Battlesector. Back and through here, we're seeing, again, essentially just Battlesector, but with the Runequest style, and also with the sort of more that Bronze Age fantasy elements in it rather than the Warhammer 40,000 elements. Just go next, and again we're just looking at pretty much a reskinned Battlesector, and that's not a bad thing in terms of the actual combat itself. The combat for Battlesector really is exemplary. I guess in my head I'm just quickly thinking as to how's it going to work where you've got mainly melee, or I'm assuming mainly melee. Like there won't be anywhere near as much of the actual ranged forces, which are very, very important in Battlesector. So I'm not sure how they're going to balance those aspects out. But again, we're just seeing grid everywhere. It's just grid. And I was scathing when Battlesector first came out. I didn't like Battlesector when it first came out, but it rates incredibly highly. The system itself, though, works as a grid. I sort of always think that grids are a lazy man's hexes, but this is not the case. In this game, the grid system works very, very well, as it does, for example, in Field of Glory. The Field of Glory tabletop games work very, very well with the square tiles for sort of positioning your actual forces. So, like it's and again, this game does that in an extremely good fashion. It's the last of the screenshots here, but all we're seeing at the moment, is tactical battles. That's everything we're seeing. This means that I think what's going to be delivered is a tactical battle system inside the Battlesector engine, and it's not going to, and the actual the campaigns will be introduced through like cutscenes, I would imagine, very much like they are in Battlesector. I don't think we're going to see a strategic map. I don't think we're going to see a strategic game at all. I don't think we're going to have like elements on a map that we can then sort of move around. I hope that we do. That for me is the thing that this game is going to really need. Without that, I think it's going to be one of those games that'll be nice to have, but it won't be right up there. So I'm already putting a bit of a moz on this particular game because I just can't see it using the Battlesector engine being able to deliver on that strategic element. Tactically, big tick. Strategic, very much a big question mark. And because Battlesector itself also is extremely weak when it comes to the strategic map aspect. They do have a mode, which I'll show you that in just a minute, but we're not seeing that at all in this. Now, what's interesting about this particular one, if we just go and close this one down, is that we actually end up having... we've got the world of Glorantha, so players are drawn into a rich world of Glorantha, a mythical cube of earth surrounded by the Smaragd River, where ancient floods still cover the land. Yeah, this is all just story elements. That's not really going to sort of worry us one way or another. Single-player campaign. The campaign tells a story of Halgrim, a tribal champion from Talisar's Billings, as he gathers allies, including elves and even temporary lunar allies, to push back the invading chaos hordes from Doristar. Dorestor. The journey progresses across 18 missions. Yeah, so this is it. Narrating a story. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Not interested. I'm not interested in that at all. I really am like this sort of this story progression for me is nothing. I like my procedural generation in maps. I like to have choice of what I do. I don't want to be just led along a story. Having said that, I know that most gamers are happy to be led by the nose through these sorts of stories, but I just don't like it. I like to be able to work on a strategic map, and so for me, this is actually something that I am concerned about. So you'll encounter iconic characters from the Runequest world, yeah, blah blah blah. Again, story. It's just going to be story driven. So battle map and tactical actions. In Runequest WARLORDS, battles unfold on a grid-based system where terrain and positioning provide real tactical depth. Now, I've got to say that in Battlesector, the last little statement there, where terrain and positioning provide real tactical depth, is not really where I sort of think it shines, to be honest. I think it's fairly weak. That's an element of Battlesector I hope that they do tighten up, and similarly with this game, I hope that's something that can be tightened right up. Each unit holds a zone of control over nearby tiles, forcing enemies to engage or maneuver around. Action points can be used for moves, attacks, or special abilities, with heroes gaining 2 action points for advanced tactics, like flanking and spellcasting. Spirit, rune, and sorcery magic bring powerful abilities. There's your ranged attacks, while sentry mode allows units to guard areas automatically. Okay, that again, I'm sure that the tactical elements will be great. So from a tactical battle map, I'm thinking that's going to be awesome. From an army versus army perspective with skirmish mode, where you actually can fight with numbers of points, I think that will be great. But the linking it all together with a full-blown procedural strategic map and campaign, I'm guessing just won't be there, and probably won't even be close to being there. And I really feel these sorts of games need that, particularly in sort of when you're talking about fantasy. I mean, you look at games again, and I look at games, for example, like Field of Glory. Field of Glory was pretty much a tabletop tactical game, very much like the Runequest series actually is. So it started off in tabletop. It was then built as a tabletop series of games, which is fine. But then when finally Field of Glory Empires came along, and now we've got Field of Glory Kingdoms, we now actually have a strategic map that we can then go and play on, and then play our tactical battles in a more meaningful way. Now, will it happen here? I really, really hope so. But I'm hoping it's contained within the game and not 2 separate games to be able to get that experience. There's massive opportunities here for Runequest to do it properly, and also for Slytherin, of course. But I'm very, very fearful that it's not even on the cards to have a strategic map layer. And for me, would be a big problem. Again, it's fine going through like a series of fights in a campaign where you've got story, you've got cut scenes in between each of your actual progressions, but it doesn't really cut it for me. Got diverse units, so we've got 3 factions, Talistar, Chaos and Lunar Empire, which is cool. These so offers diverse units, each consisting of multiple models ranging from 1 to 7 per unit, which is great. Again, I'm sure that this will all be done very, very well, this aspect. The fact that it's got 3 factions I find very interesting, for the simple fact that the actual planetary supremacy mode in Battlesector also only caters for 3 factions, and that is the only sort of the only modelling of any sort of procedural strategic map that we have inside this engine, where there is actually 3 factions at play. And this in Battlesector really needs a lot of work to make it into something special, but it's just not. And at the moment, it's functional. It's good in what it does do. It does present an interesting way to play against the other players. That's the best we can expect, I think, in this game. So again, a bit of a negative. Runes and magic. So yeah, central role in skirmish and multiplayer. So players can engage in intense tactical battles across a variety of maps. Again, tactical battles, nothing strategic. Each designed with unique strategic challenges. That's only within the tactical battles, not within the actual overall grand strategy. In the competitive arena, they test their skills in replayable scenarios with 3 distinct factions to choose from. So you'll sort of mix them up exactly like Battlesector. And so this multiplayer structure encourages the refinement of tactics and fosters dynamic, strategy-driven battles, fully embracing the strategic essence of Runequest WARLORDS. So am I looking forward to it? Yes, very much. Am I fearful? I'm almost. I would put my. I put a lot of money down that there's not going to be any sort of procedural strategic element to this, like other than just a reskin of the planetary supremacy mode, which really won't cut it in terms of the overall sort of strategic, procedural strategic element that a game like this I think needs. I'm sure that there'll be a majority of players who will be quite happy to just have the actual single player campaign and just track through that, and then just play multiplayer skirmishes, like in sort of like almost like a tournament sort of style. Which again, I'm sure that we fine. It's just if you're trying to string it all together, I don't think it'll do it. So anyway, we've got those in through there. Let's have a look at Battlesector and just sort of see what I'll try to explain what I mean with that. Now, before I actually get into the actual game of Battlesector, I do want to point something out to you. Recent reviews of Battlesector are 91%, which is unbelievably good for a tactical strategy game. So all of these sort of, I know I'm extremely harsh with Battlesector. I know I'm extremely harsh about the lack of strategic maps and things like that. But the base game itself is incredibly, incredibly good. So you can sort of see it through there, and 89% over the whole life of the actual game itself. And so this is a extremely beautiful game to actually play. The system of the tactical system is very, very strong. And I do want to just say that unequivocally that it is a great, great game engine. And so I'm sure that the RuneQuest game, and from a tactical perspective, is in extremely good hands. It's only that strategic element is the bit I'm focusing on. So I just want to get that clear, that I'm not actually having a crack at the whole game, just one aspect of it that I find to be very, very, very important. Which no one else does. Otherwise, I wouldn't be rating it anywhere near this highly. I wouldn't rate it this highly simply because of the lack of the strategic elements. Okay, so here we have Battlesector, which is a game that is just going from strength to strength in terms of its tactical abilities. You've got different campaigns. You've got skirmish mode in through here, which we'll have a bit of a look at. In fact, I'll click on that one now. So skirmish mode is where you will take an army in to fight another army. And so you go to army management, which is what we saw there with the RuneQuest, where you end up sort of essentially coming in with an actual army and through the other side through here. So we can create a new army. When we create a new army, we then choose what faction we're going to then be playing. If we just choose, for example, the Blood Angels in this case, you then have an army point cap. If we just make it say 1,000, and I can sort of do default 8th Company Strike Force, 1,000 points. So I can sort of start off with something if I wanted to. I might just do that just to sort of cut to the chase. And so what we end up having here is something that's worth 975 out of 1,000 points. We have a maximum of 1,000. And so it's got like a company that it's taken from this full roster back over here. And that will be what will end up coming in this other one. There'll be 3 different factions at the start of the Runequest. Now, there's only 2 at the start of Battlesector, so that will be fairly cool. So we'll end up being able to sort of then go and build different companies with the points. You will then take those companies in to fight with whatever you're actually going off to do. So if I just go and click on Done, if I just go into Begin Skirmish, and from here I'll then be able to sort of choose essentially, you know, what map I'm going to be playing. And I'm thinking that there will be a lot of maps. There's going to be a lot more maps in Battlesector 2, by the way. So, you know, whatever it might actually be. And so this will be the strategic map that we end up playing in. Again, I do find in Battlesector that the actual maps have very little bearing on the actual, you know, what happens in the game. You do get to hide behind things, and that's about it. There's nothing really dramatic. There's no height advantage. There's nothing really that is, you know, sort of helps one way or another, other than hiding behind, you know, objects. And that's about it, really. So we've got that one through there. We'll just go and accept. They are making the map building better in Battlesector, but I do hope that they do make more things to make the maps more interesting in Battlesector and then in Runequest. One of the great things of actually, or the opportunities, is that they will be able to use these, because they're using the same engine now for both games. They should be able to feed off each other to get better and better and better. But things like height advantage, things like that, I think would be important for these sorts of games. And this is just not the case. Not that I've, certainly not since I've been playing it in through here. So I've got army size 2,000 back in through that other side. If I go and make it, say, 1,000 from each one of these, we've got Blood Angels. I can then just chop and change to various different groups into here to, you know, to be the ones that we then sort of fight against. So if there is 1,000 points each, I can just go, you know, I can set different things up. It's really quite nice the way this one does actually then go and work. And so this thing just creates a map. We've got turn limits in through here, point targets, yeah, whatever else we might want to do. I won't go through the full gamut, but there will be a lot of things we can set up for the tactical maps. So if you're happy to just play tactical maps, if you're happy to play a campaign, I think that the Runequest game will be a great game. It'll be a tactical battle tabletop simulation, essentially. So I'll just go surprise me. It will then sort of open up the map. Typically, I find the maps do take a bit of time to load. There's a lot of really cool texturing in the actual Battlesector system, and so it does take a little bit of time just to sort of load everything back in. I don't have an SSD hard drive. I've just got a normal hard drive, so it does take a bit longer to load the assets in for me. I'll just pause. Oh, here we go. And so you then have your systems where you sort of start to then sort of load things in. In this case, it just gave me some random elements, and we're then going to be sort of playing on a biggest type map. So we've got this central map. You can see it's all very much grid systems all the way through. Certain areas we just can't quite get access to. Different choke points. The maps look great, but we don't have a real lot of ability to do much. So yeah, you know, anyway, that's sort of the way that this particular one then sort of goes and works. But it's a very, very good system, and I'm thinking it will actually work very well from a tactical perspective. Where I'm most interested is for both Battlesector and also now for Runequest is what can be done with the actual campaign. And so if I just go back across, and I'll show you the planetary supremacy, just so you get a bit of a feel for that. So if I go to new campaign, there's a few different ones that are actually in through here, but planetary supremacy is really the only one that's sort of like got procedural content, sort of. If I go with Blood Angels against Tyranids and Necrons, you can only choose 3, which is why I'm thinking that they probably brought 3 factions in just so that they can actually keep pretty much planetary supremacy, but call it something else. So they'll reskin it, but I'm thinking it's going to be this. If they have it in there, it'll be the same basic system, and it needs work. This is the one aspect of Battlesector that is very, very weak. I'll just go launch. And what happens when you play this is you're playing on a very, very much a preset map. There's no interesting terrain in the map. It's literally just a essentially just a big flat area with hexes, and you just move around and try to take hex after hex. You have again a point system with your army, which does work well. Just press space to continue. And so this is the hex style. The 3 factions start in different areas of the board. So we start back over through here, and then the other factions then start in those other corners. On the map, we then have different aspects, different things that then enhance either our army build, or we get different abilities back up through here as well. So these are all different style of extra elements. We don't know exactly what they will be, I don't think. No, we don't know what they are. But they're sort of all, these are areas we have to then go and take over. Initially, what we have to do to be able to take over an element, take over an area. So, for example, we've got an army that's worth 1,500 points back into here currently, and if I wanted to then go and invade an area, I can only invade something next to where I'm starting, and to then go and take it. In this case, if it's unclaimed, it will give me another 100 army points to then build my army up a little bit better. If I go and claim that one, I'll then have to go in and fight it. In this case, we're going to be going after the Chaos Demons of Khorne. So I'm not sure exactly how they'll work that out with only 3 factions as to who's going to be protecting these different maps. But this is as close to a strategic overlay map that we actually have in Battlesector, and I'm assuming, based on the fact that they've got 3 factions, that they'll just reskin this and bring it into the actual game itself. If I just go across, we've got 1,400, they've got 1,200. We'll just go and proceed. And so we'll then load that map in. These maps need a lot of work in this game, and this is why I'm hopeful that it's like with the way that they're looking to develop Battlesector, because I think that I think Slytherin is putting a lot of stock in their ability to actually really make the engine work well, and make more content for it. I hope that they really do focus heavily on that planetary supremacy mode, or give us another way of playing with a much more random style map. So many games come out where they don't focus on procedural maps, and particularly with fantasy settings, and I think it really is a big negative when you do that. Games that do it well, Age of Wonders, for example. You've also got Masters of Magic does it well. Games that didn't do it well but are correcting that. The EO game, I forget what it's called. That had a very good tactical system, but it was just played on a static overworld map until recently, with DLC adding a componentry to that one. So they looked at what was happening and thought, okay, we're going to have to make a change here, I'm guessing, because it's important. So if we end up with this being the only way of really sort of moving between battle to battle, I think it's going to be a mistake. And so in this case, we're now sort of hitting a certain sort of map where we've got like a Necron style location, and we would then sort of need to go in and take the different elements from here. Again, this game, and I'm sure that the Runequest game will look beautiful. Like, this really is a stunningly good game to look at. Like, just visually, it's fantastic. We'll be doing more content on Battlesector because, as I say, it's a game from a tactical perspective. I really like it a lot, just not from a strategic perspective. Anyway, I'm not going to keep on rabbiting on. I've been doing that for nearly half an hour now. Hope I've been balanced in my appraisal and fears. I hope that it's helpful. Let me know if you. I know that I've got to say I do know that most gamers don't care about this aspect, but I do. So let me know in the comments where you fall with this. Is it something? Is having the strategic overmap important to you? Like, for example, I think of Age of Wonders, which has got it does a strategic map very well. The tactical battles are extremely well done as well in that game, but they're quite complex, and this game is also fairly complex in that regard. But a lot of players just auto battle the battles in Age of Wonders just to play the strategic overmap. So so in that sense, people are, I think, more focused on the strategy game rather than the tactical game. Whereas in this one, it's going to be much more the opposite. It'll be more to do with the tactical rather than the strategic. Anyway, guys, going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.